Есть! Граната! Бегом, бегом! FPV! Закинешь, давай! Крем!
War doesn't wait for a script. What follows is real footage from real soldiers, fighting for real ground, exactly as it happened. If you want to see what this war actually looks like beyond the headlines, stay with it. Subscribe if you want more, drop a like if this holds your attention, and let's get into it.
Друже, саме перший бліндаж ми зачистили, зачистку виповнила, друже.
Есть блиндаж!
The footage opens in the aftermath of an initial breach. Soldiers from the Third Assault Brigade moving through recently seized Russian positions in the Luhansk region, with the same methodical caution that defines every clearing operation of this kind. Among the debris and abandoned gear scattered throughout the position, the men found Russian currency left behind, a small but telling detail about how quickly the previous occupants had been forced to abandon their post. Not everyone had managed to withdraw in time. The team captured a prisoner during this initial sweep, a Russian soldier who had remained in the position as Ukrainian forces closed in, now secured and set aside while the broader clearing effort continued around him. Throughout this phase, the soldiers maintained sharp emphasis on tactical caution, particularly when it came to approaching the dugouts scattered across the captured ground. Positions like these, even when apparently abandoned, carry the persistent risk of being rigged with explosives, a defensive tactic increasingly common as retreating forces look for ways to inflict casualties, even after losing a position outright. The men treated every dugout with the same deliberate suspicion, checking for tripwires, disturbed earth, or any other sign that the space had been booby-trapped before anyone committed to entering. This discipline, refusing to let the appearance of an empty position lull them into carelessness, reflects hard-earned lessons from countless similar operations, where the moments right after a position falls often prove just as dangerous as the fighting that took it in the first place.
Спортивний, телефонів, зовсім нічого.
Все, плюс красавці, парні.
Друже, у нас є ще FPV чи ні?
The clearing operation continued to unfold under sustained pressure. The earlier capture of a prisoner and discovery of abandoned equipment, offering only a brief respite before renewed resistance, made clear the position was not yet fully secured. Soldiers maintained steady communication with command throughout, reporting their status regularly, so that the broader operational picture stayed current even as conditions on the ground continued shifting. Coordinating fire support became an essential part of managing the resistance they encountered, the team relaying target information back through the radio net to bring supporting fire onto positions that proved too dangerous or well defended to approach directly. This kind of coordination demands precision, exact locations communicated clearly enough that supporting assets can strike effectively without risking the advancing infantry. A balance that becomes especially difficult to maintain once close contact with the enemy narrows the margin for error. Visual contact with enemy elements remained a constant priority, soldiers tracking movement and positions even while dealing with the immediate demands of the clearing operation itself, aware that losing track of where the enemy actually was could quickly turn a controlled advance into a dangerous surprise. That vigilance proved necessary when the team encountered resistance from nearby bunkers, fortified positions requiring the same careful, deliberate approach as the dugouts cleared earlier, weapons ready and communication tight as the men worked to neutralize the threat. Each hostile position neutralized brought the team closer to fully securing the sector, though the process demanded the same patient, methodical discipline throughout. No assumption made about what remained ahead until it had been directly confirmed and cleared.
70 метрів, друже. Там окопка і бліндаж, вони пи***ють нас, Інтенсивна стрільба була приблизно з 5-6 калашей і з одного пекача. Як прийняв.
The intensity of the fighting escalated sharply as the unit came under heavy fire from Russian machine gun positions, the distinctive sustained bursts of PKMs mixing with the sharper crack of AK rifle fire pouring in from multiple points along the contested ground. This was a different order of resistance than the isolated bunkers and dugouts cleared earlier, a coordinated defensive effort that forced the team to shift immediately from methodical clearing into active, high-intensity combat. Facing this concentrated volume of fire, the soldiers worked to identify and coordinate precision strikes against the enemy positions responsible, relaying targeting information back through their support network to bring accurate fire onto the machine gun nests and rifle positions, pinning them down. Precision mattered enormously here, the close proximity between friendly and enemy forces leaving little room for error in how these strikes were called in and executed. The coordinated response paid off, gradually pushing back the Russian forces and reducing the volume of incoming fire enough for the team to regain the initiative they had briefly lost. That success did not come without cost, however, and the unit found itself simultaneously managing wounded soldiers even as the broader engagement continued around them. Medical aid was provided directly in the field, comrades working quickly to stabilize the injured, while the rest of the team maintained pressure on the weakening enemy resistance. The same dual demand of fighting and caring for the wounded that has defined so much of this brigade's operations throughout the war.
Чича, что у тебя там рассказывай? Рука как? Ну, бачишь, подпухла. Ну, блядь, это нормально тебе. Ну, так думаю, что осколок.
With the wounded stabilized as best the field conditions allowed, the team pressed forward with the tactical sweep, the same disciplined rhythm that had carried them through the operation's earlier phases, now resuming despite the toll the recent engagement had taken. Stabilization procedures in the field are never a quick process, comrades working carefully to secure bandages and manage bleeding well enough for the wounded to be moved safely, all while remaining aware that the broader objective still required their attention and readiness. The sweep eventually brought the team to a final bunker, one of the last significant points of resistance remaining within the contested sector. Rather than committing immediately to a direct assault, the soldiers opted for a more controlled approach, issuing clear commands demanding the remaining occupants surrender rather than continue a fight that offered them little realistic chance of success. When the initial demands failed to produce an immediate response, the team followed up with a grenade, a calculated show of force intended to make clear that continued resistance carried serious consequences, without yet committing to a full assault into the structure. The pressure worked. Faced with the certainty of what continued defiance would bring, the remaining enemy soldiers inside the bunker chose to surrender, emerging as instructed to be taken into custody. This outcome, achieved through firm pressure rather than a costly direct assault, brought the tactical sweep to a successful close. Another position cleared and secured without the additional casualties a forced entry might otherwise have produced. With the final bunker cleared and its occupants surrendered, the mission moved into its concluding phase, the team now managing the practical work of securing weapons left behind by the captured soldiers and beginning the process of formally detaining the prisoners accumulated throughout the operation. Each weapon collected represented one less risk during the eventual movement out of the area, and the soldiers handled this task with the same careful discipline that had defined every other stage of the clearing operation. Processing the detainees required its own methodical approach. Prisoners searched, secured, and prepared for transport back through Ukrainian lines, a responsibility that carried real weight given how much the day's fighting had already demanded from the men involved. There was little time for relief in this moment, the practical necessities of the mission's conclusion still requiring focus, even as exhaustion from hours of sustained combat began to settle in. As the unit began their withdrawal from the combat zone, a quiet reflection settled over the group, the stark contrast between the morning's arrival and the evening's departure impossible to ignore. What had begun with a cautious approach into unfamiliar, hostile territory had become, over the course of a single grueling day, a fully realized operation marked by captured ground, wounded comrades treated and stabilized, and prisoners now in custody. The soldiers carried that weight with them as they moved away from the position, the kind of quiet, exhausted awareness that comes only after living through exactly the intensity this engagement had demanded from every man involved.
А, давай ко мне залазь.
Да я понимаю, пацаны, только жетоны
Так, давай, сука, режи. Тихо, смайлик.
The mission had come full circle. What began as a cautious morning approach into hostile territory ended, hours later, with captured ground, prisoners secured, wounded comrades stabilized, and a unit walking out changed by everything the day had demanded of them. That quiet, exhausted contrast between the morning's arrival and the evening's departure is what a single day on this front actually looks like. No dramatization needed. None of this would be possible to show without the men on the ground willing to carry a camera into exactly this kind of danger. A sincere thank you to OB3 Army for providing this footage, giving the world an honest, unfiltered look at what this war really is. Not the version filtered through headlines, but the reality soldiers live through every single day. If this gave you a genuine sense of what these soldiers endure, subscribe for more content like this. Hit like if it held your attention and drop a comment with your thoughts. I read every one. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.